Another episode of the Conservatarian Exchange on the Liberty Block. I'm Lou Axelman, filling in guest host for my dad while he's busy. And we have Ed M and Ed P here. Thank you very much, Department of Eds, for being here.
Good to be
No
here.
problemo.
Yeah, is anyone itching to say anything? Because I have an interesting story I came across on LinkedIn yesterday or last night.
Oh
I'd
my
like to
God,
talk
you
about.
use LinkedIn. Wow.
Is that for boomers, or because it's so boring, or because it doesn't do much?
No, that's all right. You're allowed to use LinkedIn. This is a free country. So what'd you
Yeah,
find?
yeah, yeah. I honestly I feel like it's like a dead internet theory, meaning 99% of everything is bots or fake or AI or spam. On LinkedIn, roughly as bad as Facebook and X and everything else, and Reddit and everything. X is a little better, but they're all
In
fake.
the
I think it's
last year, I parenthetically, in the last year, I've gotten like 500 new followers on X, Twitter, and I think certainly lower than 10. I think 7 of them are real people. That's
yeah,
that's how bad it is.
yeah. I do believe the dead internet theory, which is pretty much that most of or all of the internet, close to all of it, a big majority is like fake or bots or something like that. But anyway, but someone I know is real because I've spoken to him on the phone is my friend who at a point went kind of viral on YouTube. He's a lawyer who also started very late in life after I think a career in the army. CJ Grisham, and he's a lawyer in Texas who does criminal defense and constitutional law, essentially within the same space. Like he'll defend his clients on free speech stuff, crimes, disturbing the peace, whatever, and disorderly conduct at town meetings when they curse. And then he'll sue with 1983 lawsuit for like violation of rights. So the same thing. And he does both criminal law and constitutional. But anyway, he's awesome and he's outspoken, and he goes by Texas 2A attorney. So he's big on guns and he's big on free speech. It's like First Amendment, Second Amendment. Anyway, he posted on LinkedIn. I'll share the screen now. Let's share the screen real quick if I can figure out how. Where did the screen share go now? Jeez. All right, I'm gonna keep trying to find it because this
Share at
whole
the
thing got
bottom.
messed up. I I don't see. Yeah, I don't see anything. It's my Zoom is effed up. If I can't share it, then whatever. But pretty much, he's been on probation since he became a lawyer a few years ago. It's like 5 years now. It's been a while. And apparently, it was because of that viral video at Aransas Pass, Texas, a tiny town where I think he was defending his client who said something at a town meeting, and he used like the F word, saying I can use obscenities, and he had like some case law. He said it's the First Amendment and stuff, and there's case law saying he can curse. And the town administrators and police and everything, he said they're like goddamn tyrants or F you or something or shit. And then they, I think, arrested him or gave him criminal charges, and then he sued them after they dismissed the charges. But apparently, the Texas licensing board put him on probation to make sure he's a good boy because he said a bad word, which I think is a First Amendment issue, but I'm curious for all of Ed Maslish's feedback.
I mean, I'd need to know more, but based on what you just said, just obey. I mean, it's you're not surrendering your rights by being polite. We talk a lot on this show about the need to have a good culture if you want to have a good polity. And your friend your friend is trying to reverse that by saying, "Well, I get to be free and do whatever I want, and my freedom, I'm gonna do what I can to create a lousy culture." So to me, I mean, maybe it's a First Amendment issue. I don't know. I mean, I'd probably need to know more, but I think the guy was wrong. He should learn how to live like a civilized human being. And if you're gonna attend a local government function, then be respectful or don't show up at all. I mean, there are ways you can protest without being a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, I think in any sort of conversation, there's a role for occasional profanity. I certainly do that. But if you're in anywhere, like if you're in anywhere, like your friend's house, like business establishment, or what is essentially the government meeting, if you do uh, curse and they ask you not to, then I think it's an issue of they can kind of set the rules, for the particular meeting. And if they don't want foul language, then that's perfectly reasonable of them to ask. I think if you continue to curse, that seems like it's a sort of simple trespass, right? You're in a place and you do something, and the people who are in control of the place ask you not to do it, and you continue to do it. That seems to me sort of
but a
simple
town
trespass.
government,
That
governments have to respect the First Amendment. And if you curse at a public town meeting at public comment, I would think that's free speech.
Yeah, I mean, again, there are times, right, like here in Fairfax County, where they attempt to read the books that are in the school libraries to the school board, and I think that going off and cursing out the school board or the town council or whatever, as emotionally satisfying as that would be, given that they're mostly awful people, that there's no intellectual content, or political content, to be honest. But like when you say, my child who's in the 5th grade brought this book home from the library that you manage, and here I'm going to read it to you, and then read porn, basically. I think that has a intellectual content, that has a political message,
Right, that's
and that
different.
and that is different, right? Exactly. There's a difference between that and just going off and cursing it at the town meeting.
Although I would just say, I mean, maybe he's got a First Amendment right to do it. I mean, sounds like a plausible thing to say, but to me, it's kind of like, does the individual who sells Lennon the rope that he's going to use to hang people, does he have the right to sell his property that way? Sure. But is it the right thing to do? No. And
yeah, and I appreciate the distinction, and that's why I always try to preface every thing I say with, are we talking about what's the law and what's a good idea in place, society, and culture?
I mean,
two different things.
If you're doing if individuals are doing things that are chipping away at the pillars of civilization, why doesn't civilization have a right or have the responsibility to defend itself and stop that bad behavior? I mean, I think that this notion that rights exist in a vacuum is not only not right, but it surrenders our culture and our politics to the worst of the worst, and I don't think that's necessary. Or
it would be taking your clothes off in the middle of a meeting, even if there's no children there. So let's remove children from the equation. It's rude and doesn't have any intellectual content. And I would say the same thing, honestly, about burning the flag, which I do not think is speech, despite the Supreme Court's ruling otherwise. And that does have intellectual content, and to a certain extent, I'm glad to see leftists burn the flag, because that shows you who they actually are. But yeah, I definitely think starting fires, whether it's on, should be banned.
I wish I remembered more about the case. I saw the video he was on. I think the DUI lawyer. It's a decently big YouTube channel. He was on him to talk about this whole big case where he was defending free speech, and then they gave him charges also, and it was pretty bad. I mean, the town council is pretty bad. I wish I remembered it, but it was years ago when I saw it. So I'm gonna try to have him on the show. I think I asked him. I think he agreed a while ago, but then we fell out of touch, and he got busy. His firm has too many clients. He's too busy. But we'll have him on the show at some point eventually, and he'll explain probably the whole case, maybe defend himself, maybe help move Ed M a little bit over toward that side. I don't curse a whole ton, but I agree with the Supreme Court, by the way, in Cohen versus California. Was that it with the F the draft?
I think that was the Miller case.
Yeah.
I think Miller was a different.
But
I think
it's sort of the same thing.
Value the F word because it's emphasis, and if not for the F word, saying "fuck the draft," that by being so offensive, then it would deprive the hearers of the message of the shock value of saying how strongly this guy feels about the draft. So there is extra value to that emphasis, and that's what the Supreme Court said. And this was 1970 or 1960 when the F word was pretty not accepted in polite society. Like in the court arguments, they were saying like there were women and children around, and he said the F word. This was a travesty, and still they said there is emphasis. So to push back on what Ed P said, I think all this stuff there actually is value. Although I'm such an extremist, First Amendment absolutist, I don't think there has to be value to speech to say that it's protected by the First Amendment, because the First Amendment says all speech is protected, and Congress will make no law abridging any freaking goddamn speech, whether it has value or not. That's what the First Amendment says.
You know, it's like
I think
being.
Go ahead.
Ed. Oh, okay. Well, it's like being pulled over by a cop, right? You're in your own property, your own car, you're on public streets. Now, should you curse him out? Like, are you legally permitted to curse the cop out when he asks you for his license and registration, or is that going to end badly for you, right? I mean, I think obviously I think you can take that to the Supreme Court too, but I have a feeling better just hand him your license and registration, right?
Yeah, no, good idea. We're not talking about we're talking about what's the law. Not a good idea. I agree. Being polite is a good idea.
What I'm saying is, we talk a lot on this show about how the enemies of civilization, leftists, whatever, however you want to describe them, they use our constitutional freedoms to destroy our constitutional freedoms. And your absolutist view of the First Amendment, of the Fifth Amendment, of the Second Amendment, all these amendments, you're defending them in a vacuum, or you're applying them in a vacuum, and you're ignoring the fact that there are people that are using those freedoms to destroy the civilization. And the absolutist view that you're advocating is, in that context, effectively a preemptive surrender, a unilateral surrender. I mean, you're just saying we're not going to do anything. You can be as coarse and as destructive of our civil institutions as you want, because the First Amendment says so, or the Second Amendment says so, or the Fifth Amendment says, whatever it is. You're taking this out of context view of the amendments and of the Constitution, and saying, okay, if somebody wants to use the Constitution to destroy the civilization, there's nothing we can do. And I just don't buy that at all.
No, I'm totally agreeing. I concede, and the point stipulated that as a pure capitalist, I would sell my enemies the rope to hang me, and that's an issue. But again, that whole issue, it's a huge issue, because they would hang me and I'd be dead. But that should be taken care of on the cultural side and the civil side, which, in a sense, I have distinct in my brain in different departments from what the law and Constitution say.
How can you take care of it on the cultural side if the legal side is constantly giving the feedback, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay?
There are a million things that are okay, but that are horrible ideas. Smoking and drinking and eating cheeseburgers 24/7 is legal, and it should be, but it's a horrible idea. And personally, with me and my wife and kids, I recommend they don't do it. That's why I think distinct. There's two different worlds, and obviously, I think in two different compartments in my brain. Are we talking about good idea, and then I'll talk medically what's a good idea or culturally, or are we talking about what's the law?
I think it's okay I think it's okay for a different locality to come up with different rules that say we're going to protect civilization. Ed P likes to give the example of Ocean City, New Jersey, where they ban alcohol, and they basically, they ban drugs, they ban alcohol, they have a curfew, and they have all these things that, in this absolutist sense, are violations of your rights. But if you go visit there, it's beautiful.
I bet.
It's a place to be. And I think that the results matter. I don't think that the means are the only thing that matter. I think the end also matters. And defending civilization is a reasonable end to me, especially when decided by local communities.
Yeah, I think
I
there's
think
the HOA kind of thing, and if everyone agrees, good culture is good.
Yeah, I do think, like, I'm on the HOA board here, and I do that as a matter of self-defense, right? Because the Karens of the world tend to gravitate towards that. But we try to be reasonable, right? I mean, we try to be very reasonable. We don't try and like jump on people or like be crazy if someone, hasn't painted their house, give them time to paint it or whatever. The the thing is that there are local governments and HOA boards and school boards and whatnot who are very, very unreasonable. And I'm not sure that cursing at them, as opposed to trying to run to be on them, like I did with my local HOA board, I think that the second thing is much more effective. Like try to participate in the community constructively rather than just being the old man yelling at the clouds.
And you
It's
know what,
just
Ed? That's been the left's strategy for 120 years. They've
yeah,
infiltrated the institutions. They've gotten on boards. They've gotten they've gotten into the teachers' colleges. They've gotten into the unions. They've gotten into Hollywood. They've gotten into the newsroom, and they do exactly what you're saying. They try and create the kind of culture they want by subverting or just by taking over institutions. And that's what you're arguing, and I don't disagree with you about it.
Do you guys remember who it was of the founding fathers who said the Constitution was only for immoral and like decent people who acted human
John
beings?
Adams.
Okay,
Adams, yeah.
so yeah, that's I think the main focal point here for me. Like, I agree, the laws are not enough. The non-aggression principle is like a bare minimum baseline kind of thing, the foundation. You need to live like I live among human beings, and I'm very happy. I have lived in the past among not human beings, and it was not as good. So, like Ed P would say, like in a sense, that's why the HOA is there to keep out the riffraff, so to speak. And I get it. I've lived, I've spent a lot of time in the Bronx. That's not where I'd want to live for a lot of reasons. And now I live among human beings, and it's better for me and my babies to live in a proper place. So
Yeah, there's a guy, Joseph Sobran, who said that the entire history of the post 1960 era has been people trying to escape the consequences of the Civil Rights Act. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, as people move further and further out to try and maintain the civilization. And I was talking to this person the other day, and you guys have been here, so we live in a nice neighborhood, and it's like my life is almost entirely lived libertarian. Like, I deal with my neighbors in friendship and reason, and I go to the store and I voluntarily hand over money in favor of things. You don't deal with the state at all. Of course, you pay your taxes and stuff, and that's annoying. But like our interpersonal relations are all very much in the libertarian ideal. Yeah, we want fewer taxes, and all the things that the taxes pay for. But still, it's like, but there are places in the United States where that's not the case, right? I mean, where people deal with the state, the police, or the firefighters, or whatever, all the time, because it's such a bad place, and we try to escape those places, the civilized among us.
And that's why we want project housing everywhere. Every nice community has to get projected.
Right. And even in our neighborhood, there is quote unquote low income housing that they force the developer to build. And so what that means is there's some townhouses in our neighborhood, non-garage townhouses, so kind of low end townhouses to go with the single family homes. And this is a Virginia thing. And, generally in this neighborhood, in the previous neighborhood, a lot of the problems come from these, what they call affordable dwelling units, ADUs. And the other sort of thing is, that really hurts neighborhoods like this is, to be honest, is people who buy these houses for investment and then rent them out, because the renters are, I would say 80% of the problem, renters and absentee landlords. And so, it's not apparently legal for a homeowners association to ban renting. But they do ban Airbnb kind of short-term rentals.
I thought some HOAs did not allow for renting out the house.
Well, not in Virginia, it's illegal. But I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of places elsewhere where it is illegal. And you'd think, well, it's my property. Why can't I? Why can't I rent my house out? And we discussed this on a show a few months back, Trump wants to pass a law saying that these large companies cannot own more than, I don't know what it was, like 100 single family homes. Because
I had a
you
quick
know
discussion with Vinny about that, the legality of saying,
there
of like, yeah.
there's a lot of venture capital money out there, and not as many businesses as there is venture capital money. And so they thought, well, let's go into real estate. Let's just buy up all these single family homes and rent them. Now, I don't think that's a particularly good investment, in the sense that while the price of these homes is in fact going up, if you don't maintain them, which takes a lot of work, trust me, it takes a lot of work and a lot of expense, then they don't maintain their high value. So there is a problem with that sort of thing. And so you say, well, it's my property, I can rent it out if I want to. But it goes back to what Ed was saying. It's like, as long as it's not like a national law that you can't rent your house, or a state law. But if there's localities that say, no, we don't want any renters here, I think
Well,
that's
what I was
perfectly
saying
reasonable.
was on a different level, the HOA, if I'm not being confused, the HOA, in a sense, is a private organization. They have a lot of rules. All HOAs all over the world have some rules that are strict in various ways. Why can't they say, if you are in the HOA, you can't rent out to someone else? That's like a freedom of
Well,
association against the HOA.
yeah, I think it is, but like, you're mistaking HOAs for private organizations. They're not. They're entirely I've gone into this here in Virginia anyway. They're entirely entangled with the state.
Definitely entangled.
So it's
Definitely,
yeah. I mean, there's so many laws governing in other words, in a libertarian society, an HOA would just, there'd be a contract and you would sign it, and then everything would be governed by contract law. But it's not the case. There's a lot of state laws that set up these HOAs and govern their ways you can enforce things and stuff. So it's quasi-governmental, I would say, here, at least here in Virginia.
And any response to that? I was going to say, I forgot a minute ago. I was going to say, somebody told me something kind of concerning. There was a decent neighborhood, but I have some relatives in. There's a shopping center that apparently is going to be like bulldozed very soon. Like a decent shopping center, all sorts of different types of businesses I've gone to for lunch and this and that and banking and stores and barbershops. It's going to be flattened, and the owner would rather set up like project housing, affordable housing kind of stuff, where I guess he could take people who have vouchers, HUD, Section 8, whatever it is, because it's more money, because he'll be getting money from the federal government essentially, and state and city government for that. And that's more profitable than the shopping center. He currently owns the whole property. And that's concerning. Again, it's not the free market. Some leftists with an IQ of 50, like AOC and the other geniuses who just won the primaries in New York, they would say, oh, it's a free market, but it's not. Obviously, when you're a massive landlord, property owner who has these buildings, these projects, and the money you're being paid with, like the majority of it is HUD, vouchers, welfare from the government, socialism. That's not the free market, and that's sad. Like, this one more shopping center being destroyed, and more projects and those people being brought into that community, which was formerly nice.
Well, what's interesting, and this is not our usual topic, but when I was a kid, there were no malls, and I remember the first time a big mall, was built, and this huge thing with all these stores and department stores and like huge ceilings, and it was beautiful. And there are still malls that are kind of like that, but malls are kind of dying, right? And I'm trying to think of why malls are dying in favor of shopping centers. And
well, this was the shopping center I was talking about. Yeah, it was outdoor. It wasn't.
Yeah, right. The outdoor shopping centers now are kind of taking over, and I was kind of wondering why. And obviously, I think cost of energy and maintenance for the indoor space, costs a lot. But not to sound like Bernie Sanders here, but I really do think it's partially the financialization of everything in the country, right? Because what you do is instead of owning a piece of mall and renting out the stores and then getting the rent and paying off the loan, construction loan or whatever, all of a sudden you're basically securitizing that debt and selling it to people, and then they're demanding more and more return on their investment above inflation. Of course, inflation, as libertarians, we understand that inflation is the core evil of the modern government, right? As the money printing. And that just drives them to raise the prices and raise the price and raise the price and raise the prices. And I know our favorite dry cleaners just went out of business because the same thing happened to their little corner of the shopping center. As the owners sold it, and the new owners came in and thought they would just jack up the prices, jack up the rent, beyond everything. And I think this is what's happening to the malls. And you can't survive under that no business can survive under that kind of financial pressure to constantly beat the market in returns. Like, if, and I think that's kind of what is driving these malls into, which have higher costs than shopping centers, into oblivion. I mean, they're closing all over the country. I mean, so I went from when I was a kid, no malls, and then there were malls, and we hung out at the mall, and we shopped at the mall and everything, and now we're, no malls again. And people blame Amazon, but like all these malls are like clothing.
No, I was going to
stores.
say Amazon online retailing. I thought it would kill, honestly, all brick and mortar everything a lot sooner. So when I go to a bookstore and I see it's still thriving decently, I'm a little pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. There's lots of people at my local bookstore. I went there the other day, but that's in a shopping center. But the thing about malls is, it's mostly clothing, and like you can try to buy clothing online, but like my wife will like buy 5 things and return 4 if she wants to online. Whereas you go to the mall, you can like find stuff. I've found all sorts of clothing at the mall. I like going to Macy's or one of these other stores to buy clothes rather than Amazon, which is garbage. The clothing is garbage. So it's just me.
Yeah, I think people want human connection in real life, meet space, and that's going to make a comeback. And with so much being online and virtual, but also bots and AI, like so everything you think you're talking to, it's really an AI bot or something, someone doing a deepfake. I think the only way to make sure it's real is to actually spend time with someone in person in real life. So I think that's kind of make a comeback. The pendulum will be like swinging back.
I think so. I think people are realizing that in real life interactions with people is much more profitable than solely online.
All right, sorry for taking up the first like half of the show with my topic about free speech and debate. If you guys have any topics that you wanted to discuss that were the biggest things of the week, we can. Otherwise, I want to talk about my friend Saint Fauci, because apparently he's back in the news.
Yeah, Fauci.
I haven't been following it. I see people are talking about him. Oh, now he's going to be subpoenaed by Rand Paul, and he's going to have to pay for his crimes.
Well, I don't think anything's going to happen because I don't think Congress is a serious organization. But, the idea is Biden pardoned him for all his crimes before then, including, the fact that he lied to Congress multiple times. But since he has the pardon now, and since, funding the gain of function research, which was illegal, and lying to Congress,
but now he can't plead the fifth because there's no potential criminality.
He can't plead the fifth because now the problem, and I said this before, is what's that?
He could plead the fifth.
You can't plead the fifth for crimes that you committed that you've been pardoned for.
He could plead the fifth because he's still subject to state prosecution.
Yeah, I had a discussion with Vinny the other day about that. Like, what are the limits and the contours of if you're pardoned, then you can't plead the fifth? What if you say, but I committed other crimes? And like,
I mean, they could. What Rand Paul should be doing is talking with DOJ and having DOJ coordinate with the Attorney General of Florida, the Attorney General of Texas, other places where you have friendly prosecutors, and initiate a state level prosecution. That's what they should do. But
for sure, they should have done that years ago. Yeah.
If they subpoena, even if he agreed to appear before Congress, he could plead the fifth. He could say, I'm subject to prosecution from a whole bunch of different states.
Yeah, I hear you. That's true.
But even him pleading the fifth, in the court of public opinion for PR, it would be great. Like vindicating my book, Corona Fascism, about Fauci, and vindicating RFK's book, probably. So that there would be some value in him pleading the fifth by saying, kind of admitting he's a criminal.
Who's that going to persuade that doesn't already think he's a criminal?
I mean, most people obviously aren't persuadable. I don't know. Maybe
I think that I think that we all understand that the NIH funded Ralph Baric and the EcoHealth Alliance, and the DoD potentially too, and they transferred the money to the Wuhan lab to do research in coronaviruses, including gain of function research, and that almost certainly there was a leak from that lab in one of these coronavirus gain of functions. There are questions that caused the COVID-19 pandemic. So, Fauci to Ralph Baric to the guy whose name escapes me, of the EcoHealth Alliance, and to the bat lady,
Peter Daszak.
Peter Daszak, EcoHealth Alliance. So Daszak, Baric, and Fauci, along with the Xing Li, I forget her name, I think, are the four primary villains in the COVID thing. And I think we all know that, the three of us, and Dick will know it, and Mike will know it, and Stephen will know it. And I think the number of people who know that in the general public is almost none. I think that the obfuscation of this relationship and how we ended up funding our own destruction is known by almost no one. I mean, you really have to read the alternative media,
which we all did.
You wrote some alternative media, Alu, but I think that
I think like a third of Americans, or half of them, whatever you consider the right, the libertarians, conservatives, they all know this. I mean, there were a lot. I don't
think so. Even like there
are 20, 30, 40 books now about Corona Fascism now.
I follow a bunch of people who are influencers who came to the quote unquote right or MAGA or whatever because of Corona Fascism. They didn't like the lockdowns. They didn't like the fact that COVID was not as bad as everybody was saying. There's all those things, but the specific genesis of the virus that we just went through, I don't think anybody knows that.
I thought that was not even disputed, that it came from the Wuhan lab, from the gain of function from our tax money. I thought everyone agreed to that.
Well, I mean, of course, we know that, but like, we're not normal people, Nobody watches CNN knows that. Nobody who watches, MS Now, or the new MSNBC, or, even Fox News, they don't talk about that. So it's certainly none of the mainstream networks do, and NPR doesn't. And, you just go through all the people, all the places where people get news. And, I sent an Alex Bernstein, I think, article earlier. He was a big early, he was a big early.
I think he was the only one in the world to write a book before me.
Alex Berenson. Sorry, Alex Berenson. Yeah. He was very, very early in this, and some of his booklets got banned from Amazon at one point. He's very good, but you have to read him. You have to go out and get a subscription, which I do, and read his stuff. And nobody. Okay, maybe he does well. He probably has 5,000 paying subscribers, which is more money than
books were probably read by
all of us. But like a best-selling nonfiction book has 30,000 sales, right? It's like, we're talking in a country of 300 million. I would say that less than 1 million people can tell you the genesis of COVID in a reasonable amount of detail.
Sorry, with all due respect, Dr. Powell, no. 5, 10, 20 million are totally certain that it came from a lab, from a leak, from the NIH funding of that.
All right, well, you may be right, but even my conservative friends, they don't know that.
Why don't your conservative friends listen to the loading block?
Yeah, I hear you.
So, and Em, I think you mentioned a while ago that we should at least fight because left at least tries to fight, and you got to at least take a shot. If you don't take a shot to complete a pass, you're never going to get a touchdown or close. Whatever happened with the pardons made by President Biden, if they were not legitimate, we should. I think you said a while ago, let's just initiate a prosecution, and then the burden in a sense is on them to prove the pardon was legitimate. In a sense.
No, the burden is going to be on us on the prosecution.
But at least charge him and then at least put him on defense a bit.
I don't know why. I mean, the only explanation I have is that it's the same explanation I've given about why Trump doesn't want to destroy Iran, why he doesn't want to destroy the rioters in Minneapolis and Portland and LA. He doesn't want to destroy the enemy. He wants to get the enemy to make deals with him. And, initiating that prosecution is a form of declaration of war. And that just doesn't seem like it's in Trump's heart.
Reminded me about Hillary Clinton. He ran for years on the platform of lock her up and then didn't even think about prosecuting her at all once he became president, even though he promised.
He did think about it. He said that it would not be good for the country.
Yeah, exactly.
And that may have been that may have been a reasonable thing to say in 2017, but after what happened between 2020 and 2024, I am just astonished that he still thinks things like that, but he does.
All right. Have you guys heard about Kyle Busch, MP? I feel like you're the kind of person who would know a lot about him, the racer.
Yeah, I mean, he was another died suddenly kind of guy, right? I mean, he
I wasn't going to say died suddenly, but I just saw an article come across my X feed that said he did seemingly die suddenly and he was young and in good shape.
In good shape.
21 years old.
Yeah.
And athletic. Obviously, to be a race car driver, you have to be extremely athletic.
No, I just glanced at an article that said he went into, he had pneumonia, which is like an infection, inflammation of lungs caused by generally bacteria or virus. He became septic and died pretty quickly within like 24 hours of being hospitalized. And that's suspicious. Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, I've seen people who could, you could die quickly from sepsis if an infection gets in your bloodstream and all your vessels vasodilate and you blood pressure plummets and you die. But yeah, I mean, if he was really an elite athlete, that's probably a low chance that happens, but you never know. I'm not quite ready to blame the COVID vaccines unless I see more evidence. But again, I don't know. Did he recently get vaccines? Did he get the boosters? I have no idea. I don't know his medical history.
Yeah, they're not telling because again, with the whole
when they cremated him right away, that's what I think suspicious. I'm not a pathologist, but I feel like if you cremate someone, you obviously can't do a medical examination on a corpse. Like, and if it's suspicious like this, or at least was maybe not suspicious, but at least not like a standard kind of death of old age or an obvious cause of death, I would feel like there might be an autopsy. So that's a little weird. They cremated him right away, so there can't be one.
The issue with all of these, though, is the incuriosity, the institutionalized incuriosity of anyone. I mean, whether it's the Butler assassination attempt against Trump, the Las Vegas shooting, the Charlie Kirk assassination, this all the died suddenlies, the total incuriosity of all of our institutions, whether it's the media or government or the administration, Congress. Joe Kent said that the order came from the White House not to investigate leads they had of a sort of larger conspiracy with the Butler shooting. He was the counterterrorism czar. He said he didn't know whether those leads would lead anywhere, but like they had 1,000 leads and they were told to shut down the investigation. So it was, and the Las Vegas shooting, we remember that, like total incuriosity about what happened, why this guy did this and how he did it and why he committed suicide without what the whole thing was just weird. And as far as Charlie Kirk, the 30-06 would have gone through Charlie, the tent, 3 people behind him, and then the
Probably.
automobile behind that,
I
right?
think
think
with
they
ballistics,
sort
you
of-
never really know because it's random. It can hit one bone and bounce that way or go through it. But yeah, probably if it hit his neck, a 30-06 would totally go through it unless it hit
yeah, I
exactly.
mean, there've been like 10 videos I've watched, and there's probably hundreds more on YouTube of 30-06 through, a realistic human skeleton.
Yeah.
And it just, I mean, how much, but no curiosity there either. They got the guy, they think, and they're going to convict him. And, and like, oh, well, was he put up to it? Or, you know, oh, he had no social media presence.
But
And
that
then
was the
all of a
one
sudden,
who either he was
uh,
gay or he was trans.
he was dating a trans person. But like, the FBI said he had no social media presence at all, and someone leaked to Tucker, and he put it on his show. All these social media posts from this guy who has no social media presence.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, so what the hell's going
Yeah,
on
the
there?
government fuels
And
the conspiracies by being so shady.
it's partially shady and partially incompetent. I really think it is. It's like if they just would be less more transparent. I mean, the Epstein files. I mean, we looked at we're going to
I
release
was
all
going
the
to say,
Epstein
I never
files.
trust anyone. And then Bongino was on our side, and he goes to the government. They obviously bring him into a
Yeah.
skiff, put their hand on his shoulder, and tell him what's going to happen. And he comes out like a
Right.
robot saying, I saw everything. He killed himself. Do not question anything. I am not a robot. I am not being threatened right now.
Yeah.
And he killed himself.
It's and this Charlie guy, these text messages that he exchanged with his boyfriend or something. I read them and like it sounded like they're written by ChatGPT. I mean, so I mean, like all of these things just add up in people's minds. I mean, one thing they could think, oh well, the government's stupid. But like, how many times does something like Butler or Charlie or Las Vegas shooting or the died suddenlies or anything happen, and we get total incuriosity on the part of the media? Like, there's no investigative reporting anymore except like for people like Alex Berenson on Substack.
Yeah, and James O'Keefe and a bunch of others, and us a little bit reporting this stuff. But I think more than incompetence, I think it's like them being evil psychopaths and the elite conspiracies.
Yeah.
The wind just shut my door somehow from inside. Have you guys been following the flock safety? It's coming across my X timeline a lot recently, and I feel like a lot of things I predicted 5-10 years ago are coming true. Just with the way the LPRs, the license plate readers, have proliferated to using AI to essentially like data quantify or qualify different data points of license plates, but also bumper stickers, different parts of cars, like tailgate or something, and different stickers. Like it's able to understand the AI that someone has a Raiders sticker, Las Vegas Raiders football team, and they can track every car, so they know everyone's movements. And that's the other thing I said like 10 years ago, that any cop who supports this is complicit in stalkers, or they are stalkers themselves, or at least supporting it, because LPRs and flock safety stuff that take it to the next level are the ultimate tools for like stalkers and creepy people and authoritarians. And like 18 more or hundreds or whatever police have been found to have obviously been using these things to stalk people, like their ex-wife and everything. And I think some were actually convicted of some crimes for misusing the data that they said would never be used for anything except catching bad criminals. But so many of the stuff I see is so creepy about the flock system, and I'll try to find the article. Apparently, they put up these noise things. I think they're called the Raptor or something else, that finds that listens for noise for a gunshot, but it's really a microphone listening 24/7, surveilling people. The cameras and the noise surveillance machines, they're putting up all over, and there are already like thousands and thousands more constantly being put up throughout the United States. It's really creepy, and it's one of the reasons why I'm like black-pilled. I think.
Yeah, I mean, they could. You weren't on, but like, if they wanted to, they could track us even inside our homes with the Wi-Fi.
Yep.
signals, and they can tell whether I'm currently in my basement, but they could tell whether I'm upstairs, in my living room, my kitchen, my bedroom. If they were to want to do that and have, they'd have to go to Verizon and get that, but like Verizon's not going to say no. And then they have all the Ring cameras in the neighborhood. They can track you like leaving your house, and then license plate readers track where you go, and surveillance cameras at Walmart tell that I went to Walmart. Like the surveillance cameras in Walmart show that I bought some groceries, and what groceries I bought. I mean, this whole thing could be done, and they could track your every movement. Now, of course, they're not going to track everybody's movements. You saw the other day that they either Massachusetts or one of the jurisdictions within Massachusetts was going to remove all of their shot listening cameras, the ones that listen for gunshots, because apparently all the gunshots were racist and were only appearing in
No way.
minority
Baltimore,
neighborhoods.
Chicago have more gunshots than Wyoming. Surprise.
Well, anyway, the point is that like all of the anarcho tyranny, those of us who live in the suburbs, every part of our life will be traced using AI and the surveillance. But in the inner cities, where you could actually, catch criminals, and put them in jail, and thus make terrible places into nice places, they're not going to do that, right? They're not going to use that. They're only going to use it for us. And speaking of catching criminals, I sent I sent that article today, again, Alex Berenson, about the election, the primary election in New York. And this person, this individual who is named, and I'll look her up because obviously she's not American. Oh,
I saw the name. I couldn't pronounce it. I tried.
Daria Lisa something.
So she won a primary for Congress?
She won the Democratic primary over a kind of a normal lefty guy. She doesn't want any prison at all. Like no prison. Like, no, if somebody murders someone, we have to address the root causes. Yeah, the root causes of this. So no prison. So if you have no prison, does that mean no prison for like you or I if we defend ourselves against a home break-in? Does that mean no prison for us? Like our house gets broken into and someone comes in and you defend yourself. Does that mean we don't go to prison? No, that does not mean we don't go to prison. That it means the anarcho-tyranny. It means that the criminal class doesn't get to go to prison, but normal, everyday, middle class, working Americans, the slightest thing that they do wrong, and the entire federal government and state governments will be thrown at them.
Ed M., how do you feel about the flock cameras?
What's that?
Any thoughts on the flock cameras? I mean, the good news is that they're putting them all over facing children's playgrounds, so I'm sure they're watching all of the children and making sure they're all safe and they don't fall and get hurt and stuff. So it's great.
I think it implicates all the things I was saying in the first segment of the show. Yes, I think it's a violation of your privacy rights. Yes, I don't want the government tracking us. But at the same time, and yes, Ed is right that it's anarcho-tyranny, but if it were being used in the proper way to rein in the criminal class, I could understand it being reasonable. It's not being used in a reasonable way, so it's not something that I'd support. But I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, if there's an area that's a heavy crime area, and then you deploy this capability to try to stop the criminality in a specific local area, maybe a zip code or a block or 2 blocks or whatever, then I think it's potentially a reasonable thing to do, like Ed said. But like, that's not what they're doing. They're doing it like everywhere other than there.
Right.
Yeah, I think I already gave my spiel many times on the show, or at least a few times. and then presumed guilty about why I do believe that these violate the Fourth Amendment right against surveillance without probable cause, without a warrant. Because it's not just you're in public view, you're in public view, you can be seen by naked eye. These things are really essentially it's like taking an X-ray of you, taking see-through vision, looking at AI, storing data, the biometrics of you, your face, facial recognition. Some of these cameras have your gait, posture, all that stuff. I mean, so it's doing an investigation on you without a warrant or probable cause. It's a blanket general warrant kind of thing. Surveillance. I do think it's illegal. That's my argument. Very few have made that actual argument in court, I think, about these systems, but whatever. I wrote about it and presumed guilty a while ago with LPRs, I think. That's my argument, and I'm sticking to it.
So you guys, used to live in New York and still do. What do you think about these three communists that replaced three existing sort of liberal Democrats in the Democratic primary last night?
I think that the glee on the Republican side is very misplaced. I think it's a really big danger. I don't think having liberal Democrats who'd vote 100% of the time the same way the commies would is any better. But I think that the fact that the commies are obviously ascendant is something that we should take very seriously, not lightly. And I think many on the right are taking it lightly and taking it as a sign that the right is ascendant, which is completely counterintuitive to what's actually going on. The commies are the ones who are gathering momentum and winning elections. And maybe they're only doing it in certain areas, but the reality is we're not dominating, liberty and patriotism aren't really dominating in the red areas the way communism is dominating in the blue areas. It's worrisome to me.
Yeah, the Mamdani effect seems to be both, real and popular. And I don't exactly know why. I think part of it is the reaction to Orange Man Bad, but with New York, being like going to hell from a crime perspective, especially in the subways, you would think that people would be more interested in sort of safe streets rather than the let everybody out of prison and government.
Oh, so what I said forever ago. Give up on New York City. It's commies. It's horrible. It's the radical leftists, maybe radical Islam like Mamdani, and it's only a matter of time. It's going to keep sinking. If you don't want that future, then everyone should leave if you can, and let's focus our energy on saving one or two or three states instead of dispersing our energy and doing nothing. Give up on New York City. I said it a decade ago.
The problem with that is that if New York City, if all these big cities go full-blown communist,
It's secession.
But it's not like that doesn't bleed out into other parts of the country. I mean,
that's why secession is the next step in the plan.
Look at what's going on with all these frauds, right? The learning centers in Minneapolis, the hospices in Los Angeles. That's a consequence of commies being in control and federal money being pumped in with not only with no checks, but institutionally with no checks. I mean, it's sort of like, I mean, it's almost like the USAID program, right? Once the commies get their hands on federal money, they're funded forever. And so I don't think that surrendering to them and giving them, their fiefdoms works, because ultimately they're going to take all the money and they're going to bankrupt all of us.
But we
Yeah.
can't win. Look, we're not going to win back New York City and California anyway. There's like zero chance. Might as well secede and cut it off, and then at least we're not funding these Leary centers and all the other crap and the abuse and the foreign crap.
I mean,
If
I'm not
if we
saying
had a
that.
strong national presence,
Yeah, I mean,
conservative nationally, it might be okay. Let them go, right? But
but even if you had a strong national presence, that strong national presence could be used to combat them in their locales. I mean, what if Trump were as, I mean, Trump put his little sarcastic post out today, congratulating Mamdani on endorsing and on 3 beautiful commies winning. And all he does is mock them and laugh, and mockery has some value. I'm not saying no, but I mean, what if Trump were as hard on Mamdani and Walls and Karen Bass and Newsom as he's been on Thomas
Massey.
Massie and Chip Roy and Ted Cruz and other people on the right? I mean, if he were as hard on the left as he is on the right, we'd be in a different country right now. And we'd be much more optimistic, or I'd be much more optimistic, and I'd be optimistic even about places like New York. But he's not. And the rest of the Republican Party is following his lead. And, they're passive at best and ignoring the danger at worst.
yeah,
Yeah, the right is the radical left, but barely driving closer to the speed limit. They're almost identical. In some instances, they're driving a bit slower, but they're all going the same place. Socialism.
I don't think that they're identical. I think that's a I don't agree with that. I mean, I know a lot of people say that, but the right wants to go to a different place to a certain extent. Yes, they do share some premises with the left. Yes, they do surrender, but they're afraid to fight. They don't believe in what they say they believe. It's not that they believe in what the left believes. The right doesn't believe in anything. They can't defend anything. I mean, it's not hard to defend our way of life. Our way of life is demonstrably better than communism and other leftist variants of communism. It shouldn't be hard to defend it, but and I mean, Trump does, he's vocal about it, but he just does not come after his enemies the way, like he doesn't come after real enemies the way he comes after imagined enemies.
Yep. I just saw on ACLU.org a great idea that it reminded me of for how we can get the left on board with privacy and abolishing FLoC, just like the libertarian right is. Because ICE is using it. The company surveillance data is being used by ICE. They're tracking down the illegal immigrants.
Why do we want the left on board with anything? I want to
Because if they're going to help me destroy FLoC, then yeah, that's one fight I'd love for them to help with.
I don't want their help with anything. I want to separate from them completely. I want to destroy them. I don't want them on my side in any way, shape, or form. All that does, any victory that they could give us or help us get is dwarfed by the confusion it sows for anybody who doesn't have the discernment to see the danger that the left has. We shouldn't be giving them any credibility or any imprimatur of goodness for purposes of an alliance. We should be completely separating from them. I don't care. I mean, it's like if Hitler liked dogs. I mean, which he did. That's just not a redeeming quality. I'm not going to let him, partner with the ASPCA. I just won't. I don't care.
Not redeeming, but I would probably like share this article on X to all the millions of leftists who would see the ACLU as saying FLoC is a violation of privacy, and if they go and fight it in town councils, I think that's a good thing.
No, because to the extent that they're successful, To the extent that they help, that means that they're successful. And to the extent that they're successful, it's going to give them more power and more.
But the main enemy is not necessarily my neighbor Joe Smith who votes Democrat. The main enemy is the government, and if we can take out their biggest surveillance tool, which is one of the most damaging things in the universe to liberty and privacy, that's a win. That's the bigger.
I don't
enemy.
think that the government is a bigger enemy than the commies or the Muslims.
The government is the main weapon being used by the radical left to subjugate us and spy on us in this case.
I think
Pretty much
anything
anything
that empowers the left, anything that empowers the Muslims is harmful to us. Even if we get some short-term tactical victory, it's just a strategic defeat long term.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. Yeah, I didn't really think of it from that way. What did we not talk about?
Murray Rothbard thought he would. He was against the Vietnam War, and he thought the Vietnam War was a disaster, et cetera. And he was right about that. But he thought he would partner in the 1960s and early 70s with the radical left as a sort of a libertarian left kind of getting together to fight against the war. And what he found out, and he wrote later, like in the 80s or 90s, was that was a disaster, and he regretted doing it because they had nothing to offer. They were not against the war because they were not against the war for the right reasons. They were just against the war because they were against the United States. They were against freedom. They were against
and
everything.
Supported the commie.
And what's even worse is that one of the results of that alliance is that the lefties infected the libertarian movement with their leftism. It's just there's no victory from it, to me.
Yeah. So anyway, if Murray Rothbard was like, if he was tried to partner with the left and changed his mind, as radical as libertarian as he is, I think we can all just take that as read, basically, because it's be a tough, very tough road to hoe. Again, the left is not against these license plate readers. They're against license plate readers who might catch minorities and immigrants. They're not against them.
Again,
for me,
every individual, I'm sure there are some Democrats individually who do like privacy for privacy's sake.
Well, there are different. There are kind of a difference between the increasingly rare kind of old Tip O'Neill kind of liberal, who I think I would disagree with, but you could go out and have an actual conversation with. But as shown in this this article, you can't even have a conversation with what I forgot her name again. She's going to be part of the squad, though.
To the extent that there are any of those,
Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier. Yeah.
Right.
How would you ever have a conversation with her? Right. Is that even possible?
Right. No. I mean, to the extent that any of these unicorn, Tip O'Neill type Democrats still exist, let them move into the Republican Party and let them renounce their ties to the Democrat Party before we talk to them. I don't want to talk to them as long as they think that their home is in the Democrat Party. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want them in my movement. I don't want to give them any comfort. I don't want to.
You're saying we have to separate because we just have too much of a fundamental flaw. So you agree that's secession. So it sounded like ultimately we're going to have to separate from them. We can't coexist.
Separation is the answer.
Well, I mean,
thank you. Finally, after 10 years, I'm successful.
I don't, I think Ed and I both agree we want the United States to stay together and become more conservative and free and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, if you, if I'm not in the what I think should happen phase, and I think, and I'm in the what do I think will happen kind of thing. Yes, I do think dissolution is probably one of the highest um, probability events sort of in the next 50 years, before we reach our 300th birthday.
We got a week and a half till 250, and I've heard empires
Yeah.
last an average of 250 years.
And I think it's not just we all decide to go our own way, which is kind of the the peaceful solution. I think it goes through a dictatorship phase first, and I would say 96% chance that it would be some sort of left-wing dictatorship that leads to dissolution. And like if Kalshi had that, as an option, and I was going to live, long enough, I would definitely place $100 on it right now. That there would be a left-wing dictatorship followed by a revolution, but followed by a dissolution. Now, I don't want that to happen. Of course, none of us want that to happen. I think we saw that with the reactions to the World Cup. All these people thinking what a wonderful country it is, and you can live, Atlanta, or you can live in Seattle, or you can live in Los Angeles, or you can live in Chicago, or you live in Boston, and they're all different, and they all have their unique pluses and minuses, and you can go anywhere and get a job and still be American, and we have all these national parks to go to, and all the things that these tourists are now seeing in the United States. The Buc-ee's with 102 gas pumps, all of the things that we take for granted, that will go away if there's a dictatorship, and it will go away if there's sort of the United States dissolves. So, I mean, I think there's
the problem I see with dissolution is that we don't have a 50-50 country. It may be 50-50 in terms of votes, but it's not 50-50 in terms of geography. And there's no geographical dissolution that would work.
Well, you're thinking state boundaries are somehow sacred. I don't see that happening. I see a large swath.
Even if you just broke down state boundaries, I mean the left controls the cities.
Exactly.
Right.
Let them have
and the right controls the countryside.
Yeah.
Right.
And the right has all the
not just
guns.
the countryside. I mean everything else, suburbs, exurbs.
Yeah. So right now, the state borders right now wouldn't really work very well. Although, again, if states seceded, people would move. Florida seceded. It's mostly conservative. The leftists would move to New York, Massachusetts.
The leftists will never let us.
I don't see.
They will never allow a dissolution.
Moving. I see mass death. I see slaughter. I see genocide. I see ethnic cleansing. I see all of that.
I see it. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not in favor of it.
Ed, but I think that what I see is cut off federal funding, and let New York and California and Illinois and New Jersey, let them all starve to death.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
That's or go bankrupt and be completely, let all the productive people leave, which is already happening. And I don't think we're that far from a critical mass point of it happening. I mean, we're talking now in 2026. I mean, 10, 15 years of the kind of mass exodus that we've been seeing. I think something is going to give, and it's not going to necessarily be a revolution. I mean, what happens if California just goes bankrupt? What happens if New York goes bankrupt or New York City goes bankrupt? I mean,
but because of the cyclical nature of our politics, if you've noticed, every time a Democrat gets in, he does giant bailouts for his buddies, mostly blue cities and states. Clinton did it. Obama did it. Clinton did it to the tune of like 50 billion. Obama did it to the tune of like 1 trillion.
I think
and Biden did it to the tune of like 5 trillion. What's that?
Eventually we'll get sick of bailing them out, right?
No, the Democrats will keep doing it. Like, and it's just because the Republicans now are not doing anything. So they're probably going to be voted out in November. And it's like, does that make sense? Does that make sense to vote out squishy liberal Republicans in favor of communist Democrats? No, it doesn't make sense. But that's just the way things happen. And and so at some point,
I mean, I see things developing in an opposite way of you, Ed. I mean, I know you think that the Democrats are going to win big in November. I think that it's more likely that the Republicans are not just going to win, but win big in November. And then we've got 2028 where the Democrats are mulling over whether they want Kamala or some other freak show candidate, AOC or whoever. I don't think that the top of the ticket for the Democrats is going to be that good. I think the top of the ticket for the Republicans in 28 is going to be good. And if the Republicans win the next 3 cycles, which admittedly is not something that's in the bag, but I see it happening, they're going to control the census, they're going to control redistricting, and the Democrats are going to, rather than coming back to power and bailing their buddies out, the Democrats are going to be destroyed in exactly the same way that USAID funding cuts have destroyed them internationally and even domestically. And that's the way to do it, where we don't have a civil war, we don't have mass violence, and they get starved out. That's the answer. Starve them out, cut their funding, stop giving them money, and let them figure it out on their own. That's the solution.
We can't even get a Republican Congress to ratify the Doge cuts. But did you see,
Or
this
the
is really more
SAVE Act,
interesting.
I know.
Did you see that there hasn't been a left-wing government elected in the entire Western Hemisphere since USAID was eliminated?
Yeah,
Did you see that?
I can share the goddamn screen.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's
well,
like
we elected conservative.
Yeah, I'm like all of Western South America is now relatively right-wing.
Colombia had a big election this weekend.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how much. Oh, and everybody's saying, well, USAID, there are 4.5 billion children died because USAID cuts. It's like, or 5.5 million. Excuse me. Like, there's no data behind that. That's crazy talk. And I'm not saying that there wasn't some, good done by USAID and like clean water in Africa or something, but like with 90% of it is payoffs to left-wing causes. It's better dead.
Yeah, it's almost like the crazy conspiracy theorists like Ed Powell from Liberty Block years ago, saying USAID was all pretty much a fraud and a scam. It's almost like they were right about that money finding its way to obviously the politicians. And again, I've been saying this forever. Honestly, I've always been a skeptic since I was a baby. I wonder, wait, you give foreign aid to the tune of billions or like $1 trillion a year in foreign aid or hundreds of billions. And who's it going to? Not people, individuals. It's going to the government because that's who we think.
Well, eventually it gets to people, but like it is the poor. It is the working. It is the working and middle class of the United States subsidizing the rich in these other countries.
Yeah, literally, the check is going to the president and stuff, the executives, the elite in that country, and we trust that they're going to use it to help people. That's what foreign aid is. When I realized that was a big aha movement for me many years ago, realizing if you want to help people, maybe individually donate to maybe Red Cross or maybe a better charity that spends more money on the actual people, or better yet, crypto. Use crypto to send individually from you to Joe Smith in Ukraine, and they can get the money.
Yeah, there's this sort of micro lending thing where you can like make micro loans to people in Africa, and they've shown that it's a complete waste of time. The problem with a lot of that, and there's articles on this, is like, suppose you go into Nigeria, say, and you pay for, assuming you can get the workers to do a good job, you pay for a modern hospital. Great. They now have a modern hospital. But like the infrastructure that is required around the hospital to maintain the hospital is beyond the technological level of the society in which you put that modern hospital. And so it goes to crap. And it's like, well, okay, well, let's put in the electricity, and let's put in the labs, and let's put in the ability to make concrete, and well, you're just taking over the country. then. I mean, you're just colonizing the country. That's what the British did,
They call
right?
it
I mean,
colonies. Yep. Colonizing.
right. And so like, no, like, how about no? You know, I mean, who wants the white man's burden is no longer something that any of us, I think, want to sign up to. So it's just the modern version of it.
Yeah. Ed M or Ed P, any other major stories? We're gonna close out in a minute so I can go back to my kids. Anything we didn't cover that you guys desperately wanted to cover? Or any other complaints in
No,
general?
Just
plenty of complaints, but none really.
just that I alluded to a minute ago that Colombia had a big election. The right-wing candidate won, the Trump endorsed candidate won, and they counted, I think, 25 million votes in about 2 hours. Why can't we do that?
Why
Let's
can't
send every
California
Democrat
do
to
that?
California to Columbia to learn how to count.
Well, it's not about not knowing how to count. It's about something else.
Yeah. Oh, you're starting to sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist like Olu, so I'm gonna have to cut you off there. So thank you very much. Ed Powell, do you have any final last words?
No,
All right. All right. Thank you very much. I always enjoy talking to you guys and I always learn tons. I appreciate it. Same time and place next week, probably 5:45 Eastern Wednesday evening. Come on the show if you want to debate or chat with us. And check out libertyblock.com. Please do check out the books and articles and X of everyone on the show. We'll post it in the description if you guys want to follow us on X and the books I referenced. And we'll see you all next week, libertyblock.com. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
all right, Jets, I got to go to dinner.